Say you're using one of the many refugee apps in a post-Twitter world now that Elon Musk has turned it into Hitler's bunker. Someone says that Oreos are the ultimate cookie. You reply with, they're okay, but nothing beats a chewy chocolate chip. Someone else jumps in to say macadamia nut is the GOAT, and there's no debate. Then, out of nowhere, someone says that you're all F-slurs and you're going to hell for being gay and they're going to track you down and hurt your family. Well, that escalated quickly. So Threads or Facebook or Blue Sky or Mastodon or Slurm or Blippity-Blorp or Grungerland's trust and safety team suddenly take action and take the death threat post down. The account is suspended and the cookie wars can be waged another day without worrying about whether or not Pegasaurus Groiper Daddy 88 will be contributing any more hate speech. It feels a little safer and generally more pleasant to be on the platform, and everyone goes back to wasting time online. But was Pegasaurus Groiper Daddy 88's free speech censored? Did they get 1984 cancelled? After all, Voltaire did say, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it." Even if we find certain kinds of speech disagreeable, isn't it important to allow for all speech to flourish so that the best ideas can rise to the top like the delicious cream they are? For starters, let's look at what the Constitution of the United States, where Twitter and a lot of other major social media platforms are primarily located in, and see what it says about free speech. The First Amendment says, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." This means that the government of the United States can pass no laws that infringe on the freedom of the press to criticize their government or the right to protest it publicly. This is incredibly important because in multiple societies, and even many current ones, it was and is illegal to criticize the king or queen or prince's actions. Nowadays, we can say things like, "Fuck the queen," and we won't be arrested for it. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Provision 2 says, "Everybody has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication." Meaning that I can say Justin Trudeau loves doing blackface more than Joe Biden loved increasing the prison population with the 1994 crime bill, without worrying about someone coming to kick in my door for uploading this video. However, there are agreed upon limits of freedom and speech. Creating or uploading or posting any form of CSAM is both illegal and not permitted under freedom of speech. Directly threatening someone with violence or true threats constitute a category of speech like obscenity and the advocacy of imminent lawless action that is not protected by the First Amendment and can be prosecuted under state and federal criminal laws. According to Middle State Tennessee University, the speaker need not actually intend to carry out the threat, but the prosecution must prove that he or she intended to communicate a threat. Cases that have reached the Supreme Court in recent years have involved threats made over social media. There's been a historic and legal battle over what is considered to be, quote, obscene. For example, does pornography fall under that definition? What kinds of pornography would qualify? Then there's broadcasting. With the invention of the radio, suddenly millions of homes are able to have music and spoken word broadcast directly at the dinner table. Politicians were capable of reaching more individuals with their speech than ever before. The same leap took place with the adoption of television, the cell phone, and eventually the internet.
It spans the globe like a superhighway. It is called Internet. The net to longtime users.
Internet is a whole group of networks.
Government bodies to regulate broadcasting networks were put in place, as the effects of spreading horrifying or life-threatening disinformation could have real-world consequences. Famously, in 1938, Orson Welles did a broadcast of War of the Worlds that some people took literally as a real-time account that aliens were currently invading the United States.
I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from that mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Oh, Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles spreading everywhere. It's coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
What's lost to history, however, is how it wasn't so much a mass delusion as it was made out to be from the initial broadcast, but the fear-mongering that the press instilled afterwards that got it far more attention and eventually blew up into a nationwide moral panic. Now, moral panics and their own forms of censorship is another video for another day. But at this point, we should explain big tech. Corporations like Alphabet, some of whom are publicly traded and others privately, control an enormous amount of the internet we consume today. In fact, it's just a small handful of companies that control the vast majority of the modern internet that is visited by most people. Like products in a supermarket store, you may think that you have vast amounts of options. WhatsApp, Google, YouTube, Netflix, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but we've already listed a couple that are owned by the same companies. Many social media sites act like publishing or broadcasting corporations. The difference is there's no barrier for entry outside of having an internet connection and much less editorial control over content. Individuals now have the ability to garner and grow the same reach as TV networks do. Joe Rogan's podcast boasts an incredible 11 million regular listeners, and it was eventually bought out by the largest music streaming service on the planet. PewDiePie has more followers than most nations have populations. What anyone is allowed to say on these platforms is entirely up to the companies themselves.
Hate speech is not allowed on YouTube. We remove content promoting violence or hatred against members of protected groups, including but not limited to race, gender, sexual orientation, or religious affiliation.
Good faith in relation to Section 230 means that internet companies should act honestly and with genuine effort to make their platform a safe and useful place for users. Legally, this means that companies should work to remove harmful or illegal content on their platforms, like bullying or illegal activities, once they become aware of it. However, they're generally not required to constantly police everything users post in real time. This balance helps companies to act responsibly without being overwhelmed, aiming to create a positive online environment while also giving users freedom to express themselves. In good faith is key here, as letting your platform fill with Nazis is a constant battle that multiple platforms have to deal with. And Section 230 is in place to allow companies to grow in the first place, but it does nothing to answer the problem of monopolistic control over these sectors. The terms of service, or TOS as is known in every streaming or video or podcast or other social media platform, is what is supposed to dictate their rules and regulations for what you can and cannot do. Unfortunately for social networks that have millions, if not billions of users, policing content is extremely challenging. This is why much of it is left to AI to filter through, and then if resources are available, human oversight afterwards. This leads to the weaponization of false reporting that can have channels taken down. What happens to all the smaller accounts who speak out about LGBTQ+ rights or defunding the police or anything that may piss off a large amount of people that want their speech silenced? And honestly, it's the wrong question. Because the real point here is that there is no such thing as free speech under private corporations. The ultimate decision-making falls on a board with a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. They're dictatorships by design. If a private company controls the public forum, then it isn't truly public. Nowhere is this more apparent than Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, where he spends all day pretending to be free speech space-caring daddy, while at the same time censoring on the behalf of authoritarian governments worldwide. He'll call a hero who just saved a bunch of children a pedo guy, but then when a popular trans account, Juniper, makes a joke about him, he'll just have the account deleted multiple times. So the does big tech censor free speech debate shouldn't be framed that way, because of course they censor speech. The more they control our social interactions and profit from them while other companies struggle to compete due to the monopolistic dominance, the more power they have to decide what speech is or is not free. Clearly, Elon has decided that Nazis deserve more speech than trans people on his platform. And again, the idea that all speech must be tolerated deliberately oppresses groups whose speech is already not fully free.
We talk about freedom of speech. We are talking about something substantive, and we're not simply talking about a formal notion of freedom of speech. And those who would call for the right to speak freely in order to openly prevent others from having rights and liberties that are guaranteed them by the Constitution. I mean, I think that is a contradiction in terms. I mean, if you're going to allow somebody to be free to advocate genocide, if you're going to allow somebody to be free to organize genocide, to organize murder and racism, then that doesn't make any sense at all. I think it's very clear.
When Elon Musk says he believes in free speech, What he means is he believes the speech he wants should be the freest, even if it's misinformation. Remember that quote from Voltaire that speech absolutists love quoting? Well, it wasn't even written by him. It was written by a woman named Evelyn Beatrice Hall, who wrote his autobiography, which is the perfect metaphor for the paradox they create when they say they want speech in the name of truth while spreading lies. Thanks so much for watching. We live in scary times right now where it seems like politicians are really bent on rechanging the school curriculum to teach alternate versions of history that will benefit things like white supremacy. We want to start creating a series where we talk about difficult subjects, but in a simple and easy to digest manner like the one you just saw before you. If you'd like to help us so that we can continue to produce content like this, please consider financially supporting us, as it's the only way for us to make more of these videos on a regular basis. Go to patreon.com/theserfs, and any amount that you can donate helps create this content and more of this kind of stuff going forward. Also, subscribing, liking, sharing, and hitting that bell icon are crucial for us to try and get this message out there. Thank you so much for helping.